You want the truth? You can't handle the truth! Capitalism comes with profit being the primary motivation for everything. And competition. Human needs are not included. The U.S. is a business if you want to understand it. Started by Freemasons who thought it out and planned it. Christians killed the Indians, the rich was expanded. They needed a labor force and said slaves will handle it. I read kept the evidence in books document. They needed a logo to trade under like any other business type. So was commissioned to create the stars and stripes. Judged by GDPs and Wall Street salaries, but not far from last if you ask about morality. If you think of it, we not even considered citizens. The fact is we're customers, stuck up under businesses. The business model's name is given as capitalism. From the same people that bought you slavery in prisons. For hundreds of years, it's the system that we fought. As seen on TV where the airwaves are bought. But if you act now, you won't be on the net caught. 1% stay rich, that's what we have in the system. They say nothing's free cause we in capitalism. 1% stay rich, that's what we have in the system. They say nothing's free cause we in capitalism. They base democracy in being free on elections. But getting elected's not free, it's expensive. Campaign advertising, the cost can be rising in the billions. The system's craziness is major. So the president is known for a particular behavior. He honed his skills as a business fundraiser. When you're always in beef and hustle for money all the time. In the street we call that running organized crime. They tell us they know the drugs and teach us about there. But when you go to the doctor, all it is drugs there. They lock up drug dealers on the street, that's small time. The biggest drug dealers advertising prime time. Killing and torturing, it leads to bad pub. SOA in Blackwater, take it back to the club. After a shooting they change names, but it's still the same. The act don't change, the same practices remain. 1% stay rich, that's what we have in the system. They say nothing's free cause we in capitalism. 1% stay rich, we have in the system. Say nothing's free, capitalism. We live in this, you might think it's not that insidious. But slavery still exists and we're clothed in this business. Clothes made in sweatshops and we eat China's fishes. Look at the packages on fish, you can witness it. Look at your clothes on the tags, it's ubiquitous. Made in the third world where kids sew your game balls. The U.S. prefers workers with no labor laws. The cause and effect is direct in plain sight. If a leader from these countries starts to fight for workers' rights, the CIA overthrows them or hurts them with their might. Not an act, it's all facts that can be verified. One mama from the Congo in 65 homicide. They see morals and human rights is in the way of their pay, and a 9-year-old could see through the lies. When one can take 8 slices from a pie of 9, and the rest of us can fight over one to survive. 1% stay rich, that's what we have in the system. They say nothing's free cause we in capitalism. Judged by GDPs and Wall Street salaries, but not far from last if you ask about morality. The rich stay rich paying out poverty wages, and socialism's what the rich say is outrageous. When information is owned by the rich, it's contagious. King had another dream, he said that could save us. He said there's something else we gotta see demolished. We become civilized when poverty's abolished. They say it's not bad, that it's just some bad seeds. At the root, capitalism is legalized greed. They stay in business selling you the philosophy that you could be the next one in a million ideology. But you don't stay rich by spreading too much wealth around. There's only room for a few to keep the system's health sound. It's a dream, what you've been hearing, it is what it seems. Like Primerica, America is a pyramid scheme. Dr. King wasn't killed for wanting voting equality. He was killed when he went and spoke out about poverty. 1% stay rich, that's what we have in the system. They say nothing's free, capitalism. Judged by GDPs and Wall Street salaries, but not far from last if you ask about morality.
Checking out of this twisted mythology, the holidays glorifying genocide and robbery. Until the end, I'm a world citizen. Until the end, I'm a world citizen.
Big shout out to Harvey, making this beat.
Capitalism may cause war, starvation, extreme inequality, environmental destruction, and all the problems listed on this CD. Ask a person who lost their house trying to pay their medical bills if capitalism is right for you.
Well, hello there. I'm back. I'm tired, but I am going to do this. I'm pissed at our government. Really pissed. And all of you should be, because they're screwing us. They're screwing us bad. The music is going to be from The Truth, THA, instead of THE. You can get their records at thetruthmusic.com. And here's what I'm going to do. I am going to talk. To me, our government is out of control. You got the TPP thing, where they're going to make it so that if our government says you can't do this because you're ruining the ecology, then they can sue our government. And the thing is, it's a 3-panel court of 3 judges from the corporations. They're actually talking about doing this. And Congress just might let the president get away with it. Hopefully the other countries won't be stupid enough to go along with this, because it's going to hurt them as much as it's going to hurt us, even more. The price of drugs is going to go skyrocket around the world because they can't sell the drugs for less than what they sell them here. It doesn't make sense. The corporations are taking over our country, and they're trying to take over the world, and they're succeeding. These drug companies are murderers, really. They sell these psychiatric drugs that kill people and cause people to kill people. And they cause suicides. And the other drugs they have, like they may have a drug that's maybe $50, where you get a shot for $50, and using another drug is the same drug but under a different name, it's $2,000. Then they pay the doctors a percentage, and the doctors, of course, add on their up, where they raise the price, so they make a profit. So they make a triple profit off it, really, because what the drug company gives them is probably more than what they charge a customer. The extra they charge a customer, markup, that's what it is. And Medicare will pay the higher price, even though they know damn well there's a cheaper one out there. What they need to do is tell the doctors, hey, look, you're going to go with a cheaper drug if it's just as good. Our medical system here is the highest costing medical system in the world. Very, very high. Many things 2, 3, 4, 5 times as higher, and even more in cases. And the reason is we don't have the healthcare system that they have in other countries. We're the only country that has this healthcare system. It costs more than any other country. And the quality is worse than most of the other countries. You know, a baby has a chance of living through its birth, a better chance in many South American countries than they do here. It's ridiculous. Now, I'm lucky. I've got some damn good doctors. And I'm alive today because of them. But the thing is, you got all these corporations making big money for things that are way, way, way overpriced. And you got these corporate clowns that run these corporations, the CEOs, and a lot of the executives make millions of dollars. Ain't nobody worth over $1 million a year. Maybe I'll give them $3 million. But you got clowns that are making hundreds of millions. And their companies ain't doing any better with them than they would with someone else. It doesn't make sense. Now, I was pretty much for capitalism. But it's gotten out of hand. Things have changed. I'm 69 years old. And about, 44 years ago, 45 years ago, I was in accounting, doing taxes, doing auditing and stuff like that. I worked for a CPA firm, got my CPA. Back then, corporations could not give money to political campaigns. Political contributions were a felony. And the CEO of the corporation or corporate officers who did it could go to prison. That's the way it should be. Corporations are bribing our politicians by giving them all this money for their campaigns. We need to put a stop to it. Corporations are not people. You can't put them in jail, but you can put the people in charge in jail. And that's what they need to do. To me, it's bribery, plain and simple. And it would seem to me that the law would say it's bribery if they looked at it. The bankers caused the recession. The corporations helped cause a recession by throwing people out of work and going overseas. To me, they should be taxed extra for doing that. But they aren't even taxed. Corporations are given money by the government to screw us even more. It's ridiculous. Farm subsidies are going to these millionaires. There are members of Congress who are getting farm subsidies. And yet they want to cut food stamps. They did cut food stamps. They don't just want to. It's ridiculous. They want to cut my Social Security. They want me to be in the streets. I've been there before, motherfuckers, and I don't mind going back. I enjoyed myself while I was homeless. Of course, I lived in a bar, but I didn't drink at the time either. It's ridiculous. Our government is screwing us. The corporations are screwing us. Look at Walmart. They're making so damn much money. They could afford to pay their people twice as much as they're paying them and still make millions or billions, as a matter of fact. But they don't give a shit. And the government's sitting there paying their people, giving them food stamps and subsidies because they can't make a living. That's a disgrace. Our system is fucked up bad. I mean, back in the day, Richard Nixon was a crook, just like most presidents. But he got caught. But he did a lot of good, too. Prices were going up too fast. So he put a freeze on prices. There was an excess profits tax. Put a freeze on wages, too. I wasn't too happy about that, but the prices weren't going up, so I really couldn't complain that much. When I started driving, gasoline was 19 cents a gallon. 20 cents, 19.9. But they had price wars. They keep going up and down. you'd be waiting in line at a gas station. By the time you get to the pump, it jumped a penny. Cigarettes were 19 cents a pack in a machine. You're thinking, they use pennies in a machine then? No. What they did, you put 20 cents in a machine, you get your pack of cigarettes, and there'd be a penny attached to it. It's ridiculous what the gasoline prices have done. To me, $2 a gallon, I could buy it, go along with it. Luckily, I don't drive, so I don't have to pay it. But my soulmate drives, and she takes me to places where I have to go. So I help her with the gas. Anyway, I'm going to play Question Everything, featuring Why. It sounds a lot like Amy Goodwin, by The Truth. And then I'm going to read a little bit more.
Greed, violence, bigotry are not human nature. It's the nature of the few people that's running the system. And they try and teach us to be this way. Gotta fight greed and find a way like Che, find a way like Martin King and Fred Hampton. It's not all about dancing, it's revolution anthems. Get dedicated and know the best way to get educated. Questioning everything you're told since you're created. Always hated dishonesty, the corporate news atrocity. Don't think you're alone. In 2003, 3 million marched against the Iraq war in Rome. If men had the babies, you know they wouldn't force them to choose or fight for their right to have abortions. School's not for non-violence or relief, for poverty in the streets. It's a lot they not teaching, a lot they not reaching, cause they preaching the allegiance to a system that invades other countries like leeches. Not teaching equality, a tolerant philosophy is started, but the sharing seems to stop in kindergarten. Know the best way to get educated, questioning everything you're told since you're created. Know the best way to get educated, questioning everything you're told since you're created. Try and hide the sexism, but the genders raised different. Try to fight communism, but got the goods made mostly by China's system. You call Bank of America and end up talking to an Indian. U.S. Airways is the same, it's not different as NAFTA we living in. I told you to question, I still question 9/11. You believe in a government that lies every second. Think I'm lying? Go read the Tuskegee experiment. Why should I be a Democrat? They reform when they act, they rap corporate America. The hood gets left back, not about white and black, it's humanity, it has to be. It's one race that needs to unite. In the action we saw the civil rights movement shot down as proof. They kill revolutionaries but can't kill the revolution. The spirit of Che and King ring with solutions. We honor them, cause they died trying for improvements.
Know the best way to get educated, questioning everything you're told since you're created.
Know the best way to get educated, questioning everything you're told since you're created. They say we need energy solutions and the question is, where the car they made in the 90s of electric is. Tried, complaints made about it could be rectified. The truth is that the corporations made it die. I hate most owners, they crazy, they keep making them. The Cowboys owner building $1 billion stadium. Democrats and Republicans work together to pursue the goal of keeping wealth in the hands of a few. They say they for freedom, I know how they don't care. They don't go in cause they care, it's for resources there. Resources everywhere, they send forces over air to Iraq to come back with the oil, it's not fair. And sanctions often kill more people than the wars. They have people starving, not the leaders but the poor. Sanctions killed 500,000 before in Iraq, back before they even started with the war.
Know the best way to get educated, questioning everything you're told since you're created.
Know the best way to get educated, questioning everything you're told since you're created. A thing that's a mess is the division in the left. We need to come together in a quest for the best. If we stop the division, I'm envisioning the strength. All the problems we face are from the same corporate head. The same corporate dread, gotta face what we need. Unity to fight discrimination and greed. Stop bickering and heed this call and don't fall, cause an injury to one is an injury to all. If you think that's not relevant, just think of us as a million ants against an elephant. Use your intelligence, it's not hysteria. Look up the plot of the school of the Americas. They wanna make a merger, expanding their business by occupation equals murder. Some gains have been made by attacking the system. It wasn't made by giving up or finding ignorance to live in. It's a saying that's said, when they came for other heads, I did nothing, cause it wasn't like me, it was them. I didn't cry cause it wasn't my tribe that was dead. By the time they came for me, there was nowhere to assess. Cause by that time there wasn't nobody left. No, the best way to get educated, questioning everything you're told since you're created. No, the best way to get educated, questioning everything you're told since you're created.
In Israel and the occupied territories, a leading cabinet member and former Israeli army commander who once called for the mass killing of Palestinians has launched his candidacy for prime minister. Transportation Minister Shaul Mofaz enters the race to replace Prime Minister Ehud Olmert just days after reports emerged he once instructed Israeli troops to kill 70 Palestinians a day.
Okay, it's time for me to rant and rave some more. So anyway, what I say is that we need to have a revolution. I'm not talking about taking guns and everything, but it may come to that. I'm talking about doing what Martin Luther King did, and have a peaceful revolution. I'm talking about protesting. I'm talking about writing your congressman. I'm talking about raising hell. I'm talking about not voting for those clowns that are getting all that damn money from the corporations and the rich folks. I mean, when you see all these ads on TV, don't vote for that son of a bitch. You know he's lying through his teeth. Motherfucker's going to rip us off. And that's not just the Republicans, but I wouldn't vote for any damn Republican right now. After what they did, no way in hell. But there's a lot of Democrats I wouldn't vote for. I mean, to me, most of them are traitors. The president is a traitor. He's also a war criminal. So was our last president. Well, he was too stupid. And it was Dick Cheney that was really running things. I know damn well 9/11 was done by our fucking government. Because they'd done it before. They don't mind killing people. Look at all the people they killed in Iraq over the years. Not just during the war, before the war. With those damn, what do you call them? Where they wouldn't let them have the stuff. You know, they stopped food from going there. They stopped medical supplies from going there. They didn't hurt old Saddam Hussein. They hurt the people. Then they go over there using uranium bullets, depleted uranium, and now most of Iraq is atomic hazard. I mean, they've killed more people with uranium, depleted uranium, than they did in Hiroshima, I think. I would bet. And our soldiers go over there, and more of our soldiers were killed by our government with the PTSD, and suicides, and you know, and then they're having babies that are deformed, and in Iraq they're having babies that are deformed. Then in Europe, when they had that little war over there, they used depleted uranium. People are dying from it. Then we got these nuclear power plants. Fukushima. The radiation is getting to California now. And it's traveling through the world. They got to get rid of these nuclear power plants. They got to get rid of the nuclear bombs. I mean, they sit there and bitch and moan about Iran getting the bomb. What in the hell do you expect? Israel has the bomb. They have a whole bunch of them sitting over there ready to go after Iran and other countries. And they're the ones that might use it. They're stupider than Truman was when he used the bomb. It's ridiculous. Our government's giving arms to all these countries that are killing people, are getting arms to countries that are going to kill people. They're giving arms that are ending up with Al-Qaeda. And hell, you can't really blame Al-Qaeda because look at what the United States has done. 72 elected governments have been overthrown and replaced by murdering dictators. More people have been killed because of what our country has done. Sticking their fucking nose in other people's business. And every time they do, they make things worse. And then they say, we're so great. Bullshit. And now we're becoming a third world country. Sure, we spend the most on weapons and on our military. We spend more money on garbage. I mean, we're paying prices for our military. We're getting parts that are worth 20 cents and paying $20 for. $600 toilet seats. It's ridiculous. Seems to me that the government could say, go to the damn hardware store for a lot of the stuff. And they could tell people, these corporations that bid, we're going to pay you cost plus a percentage. If you don't like it, don't deal with us. Fuck you. We don't need you. They need to take care of Halbrand or whatever it's called now. All these contractors that are causing more trouble. Look at what they did with the damn computer system. They used a company that didn't know what in the fuck they were doing. It's ridiculous. Our government is screwing up. And the thing about it is they're screwing themselves too in the long run. Sitting there letting using the oil and using the coal, destroying the land, tearing down the trees. Tell me global warming isn't true. You got all these scientists saying that it is true. The only ones that are saying it's not true are the ones that are getting paid by the oil companies and coal companies. And I mean, I know that I'll die long before everybody else dies. But I'm willing to bet 30 or 40 years down the road, the human race is going to start going away. You're going to end up with probably 90% of life going. Probably the only thing around will be a damn cockroach. The cockroach is going to say, we got rid of those motherfuckers. It's ridiculous. And, you know, like I say, I've been around a long time. And yeah, the climate's been changing all these years. It doesn't snow here anywhere near as much as it did 20 years ago. When I was a kid, during the winter, we spent a lot of time on our sleds in St. Louis. And we had a ball. At a point, they didn't even have TV sets, and that was great. Family would sit around the radio and listen to the radio. Watch the radio, really. TV came out, and it was a letdown because your imagination is much better than what TV was showing. That's why every once in a while I play some old radio shows. I should play some more of them. If I wasn't so greedy on the number of plays I get, I probably would play more of them. Hell, I think I want to do it. But I'm going to take another break. I'm going to play a shorty. A Different World, featuring Angela Davis.
It's a very different story. It's a story about people just like you. It is not a story about heroic individualism. Security does not mean squandering all of the country's resources on war and prisons at the expense of healthcare and education. Security means affordable housing. Security means free education. Security means free healthcare. And security means compassion for one's community.
That was a quickie, wasn't it? Yeah, that was the Truce Music with Angela Davis. She's an old lady, older than I am, but she's still a beautiful woman. I wouldn't kick her out of bed for eating crackers. Maybe sardines and crackers. I might do that, because I don't like the sardine juices in my bed. Anyway, get back to bitching and moaning. I have seen a lot. Let me tell you, go back in history a little bit. World War I was started by a false flag. World War II was started by a false flag. In other words, the country that started the war did something to piss the people off and get them to back the war. World War II, we got into it with Japan when the Japanese told the press ahead of time. FDR knew that Pearl Harbor was going to be attacked, and he knew when it was going to be attacked. He could have stopped it. He could have had the people ready for it. But he didn't tell them. To me, that's murder. To me, that's a war crime. Or a crime against humanity, at least. Then you get Harry-ass Truman. Old Harry. He was a bankrupt haberdasher. Don't know how he ever got in there. Buck stops here, he said. I think he's the one that said that. Anyway, World War II is coming to an end. The Japanese said they wanted to surrender. He said, wait a minute. Dropped a bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Then he said, okay, you can surrender. he tells everybody about all the lives that he saved by doing that. Doesn't tell them that the war was going to be over anyway, and that he didn't have to kill all those people, but he just wanted to see what the damn bomb would do to people. Eisenhower, though, he was pretty good. He got in war hero. And when Eisenhower came in, he said before he got elected he was going to end the Korean War, and he sure did. What he did was told the Koreans that he was going to drop the bomb on them, and the war ended. Now, actually, technically, the war is still going because there was never a peace treaty. It was a ceasefire. And then we get into Kennedy. Now, Kennedy, I think, probably was one of the best presidents around. In the beginning, he did some stupid shit. But I think one thing that got him going was the Cuban crisis. And after the Cuban crisis, he and Khrushchev sort of became buddies. He was going to get us out of Vietnam. We weren't that badly into it yet anyway. But the thing is, his VP, old LBJ, was a criminal. Well, I can't say that. He was never convicted. But he was being investigated for some murders. Kennedy really didn't like him. LBJ was an asshole. And he wanted to be president. Now, CIA was mad because because Kennedy was going to cut them down. Old J. Edgar Hoover, he was pissed at Kennedy. Mafia was pissed at Kennedy because of his brother going after the Mafia. And they thought they had a deal with Kennedy that he wouldn't be going after him. And LBJ, he knew that Kennedy was going to kick him out and get another VP the next time he ran. So old LBJ says, hell, I killed before, might as well kill again. So they all got together, and he was killed by a Mafia hitman. Everything I've seen points to that. Ed Old Oswald, he was killed by Jack Ruby. Jack Ruby was a nightclub owner. He was also a low-level Mafia dude. So then LBJ gets in there, and he increases Vietnam. But for some reason, he was elected. After he was elected, he started thinking maybe this isn't a good thing at all. And when it came time for him to run for re-election, he said, no, I'm going to end this damn war. And they were having peace talks, and they were real close to having a treaty. And so then, old Richard Nixon said, we're going to get in. We're going to beat that Hubert Humphrey. And he goes to Kissinger and says, Henry, why don't you go talk to those South Vietnamese? Henry said, also, I will. And they convinced the South Vietnamese not to sign the treaty by saying, we'll back you all the way. So they didn't sign the treaty. Nixon got in. I think he was called Tricky Dick before he was elected. He was the first president I voted for, too. But I was dumb then. And anyway, so we go through all the hassle of Tricky Dick. But Tricky Dick did a lot of good, too. I was telling you about the price controls and stuff like that. And he also went to China, normalized relationships with China. Anyway, let's go down the road a little bit. We have good old Carter. Carter could have been a good president, but he just didn't click. Then they had the Iranian deal, where the Iranians took hostages of our embassy. He had it all set up to where they were going to get the Iranians back. He was way ahead of Reagan. And then good old Reagan goes to the Iran and says that he will sell them weapons. And then they're going to use those weapons to help take over her country in South America. And they also, the CIA got into the drug business. That way they didn't have to worry that much about Congress cutting them off because they were making all kinds of money in the drug business. Now the drug war, that was a money maker too. I mean, here the CIA is selling drugs, and yet they have this drug war. It hurt. Well, they got a few big drug people, but what they did was increase the prison population with a whole bunch of black folks. White folks could use the drugs and get away with it. Black folks couldn't. Then they introduced crack into LA, and that spread throughout the country. Speaking about drugs, Afghanistan. Taliban got rid of the drug trafficking, and now 80% of the heroin and opium comes from Afghanistan. And you know damn well the CIA is making money off of that too. That's why we have the drug war. Cops make money off of it. There used to be a drug house not too far from where I live that was owned and operated by the cops. I was sitting there talking to one of the homeless people one time, and I was right at the city limits of Detroit and Dearborn Heights. I was in Detroit. Dearborn Heights cop every day came through there with this red light and siren, or blue light and siren going. And the homeless guy says, "You know where he's going?" I said, "No." He said, "He's going to a house over there that's selling drugs, buying drugs for the cops. They weren't going to sell them, they were going to use them." And I found out it was true. Now, I know I piss off a lot of cops. And I hope that the cops in Detroit don't listen to my shows, but I know I piss them off. I piss off a lot of people, but they deserve to be pissed off. Anyway, I'm going to get back to the injustice system by the truth. I had a website a while back called the Injustice System. When I was on Blog Talk, I had a radio show called the Injustice System. And so this I used for the theme song.
There are obviously tens of thousands of innocent people currently languishing in prison in the United States. And so the Innocence Project is in a race against time.
They say criminals should be locked in prison, but they living in a big house that's white. It's not right. We gotta fight. They don't lock up corporate criminals that ruin the planet. Jails filled with nonviolent offenders, and it's tragic. Mistreated, got me heated how they treated like animals. Corporations invading countries like cannibals for capital. The actual conditions in prison they meant for living. It's like torture they give it with night fights and listen. Where's the rehabilitation or correction or direction? It's corruption. They got gangs. They can stop the way it's running. Inmates coming out worse. They immersed in dysfunction. Prison abolition is written on by Angela Davis. Gotta stop the profiting in prison, get driven and change this. Societal conditions cause inequality and robbery. Technology is something that's not distributed properly to America. One can afford the right lawyer's price. The other goes to jail for like 25 to life. Not given rehabilitation and incarceration.
The United States is the only democracy on this planet that executes its prisoners.
There is still the idea that if you've been arrested, you did something.
There's no escape. It's all about profit. No stopping rape. In this place, they give no contraception for protection. So you know AIDS is spreading, infected with no discretion. Never gave reparations for slavery and bad habits. It's packed with mostly blacks and Hispanics. It's riddled with a lot who got time that's innocent. I start to explain with the hurricane's pain. It's a shame. There's so much racism in the system. Darryl Hunt was innocent but served 20 years in prison. His innocence was presented with DNA evidence. Similar things often happen. It happened to Charles Chapman. It happened to Alton Logan. There's so many we don't know. In Philly, we've been calling for them to let Mamiya go and Mandela to 27 in a place that's like the opposite of heaven. Rockefeller drug laws is used as a weapon in deception of detention.
How come these men are free? Because DNA testing proved that they didn't do it. They didn't do it.
Discrimination in the past readily is left present. Evidently, you can see they should end the death penalty. They ready with the facts and what happened to Aaron Patterson. The Innocence Project helps the innocent that shackled in. The movie After Innocence, after you witness it, you see the significance of changing the whole system. It's the real Shawshank Redemption that needs attention. Joe Arpaio from Arizona should be locked in detention. Feeds inmates rotten food, makes them stay in high tense. Cops get and take orders from this demonic sheriff's desk. Many inmates on death row was exonerated, showing the penalty of death can't be tolerated. To have the right funds, get the records expunged. It's a plunge in insanity, a system that has to be changed up dramatically. Factually, it's actually one of the worst ways of not acting democratically. It's torture and solitary, prisoner abuse is not very conducive to solutions, it's quite the contrary. It's way too overcrowded, but do they care? I doubt it, cause it's not about logic, it's that they pocket in the profiting.
Because you're actually nothing. All you are is something locked in a cage back and forth every day. In actuality, all our family should be up here with us because they all suffer.
For every one of us up here, there's hundreds more in prison that don't belong here.
Everything in your life is wonderful, and then one day, somebody comes up and tells a lie on you and you end up in jail.
I had to fight despite lawyers, despite prosecutors who tried to destroy evidence. I had to fight. My mom and dad spent over $150,000 on lawyer fees. That was their retirement money.
I'm not just trying to get compensation for me. I'm trying to get compensation for the guys that come out before me, for the guys that's going to come out after me. You see, this is my reason.
Hey, you see injustice, you must step up and do something about it. And that's what we're trying to do out here now.
Okay, let's talk about the injustice system a little bit here. We have 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prisoners, mainly because of the drug war. If we legalized drugs, we would cut the prison population and anywhere by 50 to 70%. And the reason is that most people in prison don't belong there. Most of them are there for drug-related charges that would not have happened if we didn't have prohibition, if we didn't have the drug war. When we had prohibition of alcohol, the mafia, the mob, I don't think they were called the mafia back then, but they were selling booze. And you had a lot of murders and everything because of it. I was living in it was a combination hotel and apartments. About 3 blocks from where I am now. And there was a massacre. Purple Gang. See, the Purple Gang was bringing booze from Canada. They'd bring it over in boats across the Detroit River. And they got in a battle. It was on the 3rd floor of the hotel. And to this day, they don't use the 3rd floor of the hotel, and it's still considered a crime scene. They have it set so the elevators don't stop on the 3rd floor. But every once in a while, it opens up on the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor is dark, it's dirty, it's scuzzy, and it looks like a haunted house. And it is haunted. The hotel is haunted. And you'd be in the elevator and you'd swear that the ghosts of the old elevator operators were running that elevator. It did what it wanted, didn't do what you wanted. Now, we're on the elevator, and the guy pushes a button for the elevator to go to the floor. It doesn't want to do it. So opens the door and closes them. Still doesn't want to do it. What happens is, if the elevator is not ready to go, it's not going to go for a while. And the longer you get pissed, the more it gets pissed. And finally it'll go. But there were a lot of other things. And it was even written up as being the most haunted place in Michigan. Anyway, they got rid of prohibition, and all of a sudden the killing stopped. And actually, I think the number of drunks went down too. Because when it's illegal, there's people who do it just because it's illegal. But then they got into drugs. And of course they were made illegal. So you had prohibition on drugs. Then the drug war starts. Bunch of people making money off of that. Well, in Portugal, they decided, hey, this isn't working. So what they did in Portugal was they made it legal, but they controlled it. And the drug addicts would go to places and they would get fresh needles and give their shot, then the needles would be thrown away. And it's probably like I take insulin and I get a syringe, well, a few of them, and it has about, I get about a week's supply of each syringe, maybe even a little more. And I have a whole bunch of needles, and I change the needle every time. Anyway, we got a prison system that is run by corporations. In fact, Dick Cheney even has part ownership in one of the biggest ones. And he and another guy were going to go on trial for fraud. Now, these prisons are a hell of a lot worse than what the state-run prisons were. And people die that shouldn't die. The food is worse than it was in the state prisons. And medical care is worse. I mean, they got doctors working for them that wouldn't be able to work outside the prison. And did you know that slavery is legal in the United States when it comes to prisoners? They are slaves. They may make 50 cents a day, but hell, it costs them more than 50 cents a day for the stuff they have to buy. Some of them have to buy their own damn toilet paper. You got about, I think it's probably close to 10% of the population in prison and jails in the system. Last number I heard was 2.5 million. So that'd be about 10% of the population, I think. Or is it 1%? I don't give a shit. It's a whole bunch of people. More than any other country in the world. And about 300,000 of those people are innocent. You got the death penalty in a lot of states. A guy said in Texas that if a white man kills someone, a black man's going to get executed. And you know, that's pretty true. Tomorrow's news, I'm going to have a story, a lot of different versions about a kid who murdered 4 people, but since he's rich, he didn't go to jail for it. Now, if you got money, the odds are you're not going to spend time in jail. And you sure as hell won't get the death penalty if you kill somebody. That's if you're white. I know of a case where a black man's in prison. He had the money for the lawyers. He spent a whole bunch of money for the lawyers. He was definitely innocent. But he still went to prison. You got a bunch of guys on death row that didn't do it. There's one case that the guy was convicted of 4 out of 7 murders. The witnesses said it was a white guy that did, and this guy is black. No way in hell people will look at him and think he's white. But they didn't use the witnesses to convict him. And so, like I say, he was convicted of 4 of them, sentenced to death. The real murderer got caught. He confessed to all 7, but he only got charged for the 3, and they didn't let the guy go that didn't do it. This is in Pennsylvania. There's a guy in Virginia sentenced to death. He was executed. I got an email from a cop that said he was innocent. And I did a little research on it. Sent a letter to the guy in prison. And he told me the story. And then I was going to get more information, but I got an email from the killer. And he told me he was going to kill me if I didn't stay out of it. Well, I sent him an email back telling him to go fuck himself. Hell, I've been threatened before. I've been shot at 3 times. Doesn't bother me. Hell, I came close to death 15 times and never bothered me. In fact, that's why I don't have any stress. But anyway, I sent him a letter. I just, like an idiot, I mentioned what happened. So he wouldn't have contact with me anymore. Told me not to do anything. His last words were, "I'm sorry for the loss of the family. It was my loss too because I was close to him. I didn't do it." He got the electric chair. He had a choice between that and the injection. But he took the electric chair because he wanted to make a point of how bad it is. What happened was a family was murdered. Like I say, they were friends of his, close friends. Turns out that it was a drug hit. And the killer was the brother of the guy who was killed. The cops knew he did it. He was a witness that got him convicted, which is what normally happens. The actual killer gets a guy convicted. There was a guy in Mississippi. He was black. He was in love with a white woman. She was in love with him. Old brother got pissed. "You ain't gonna mess up with any black guy." Of course, he used the N-word. So he murdered somebody and pinned it on the black dude. Luckily, he didn't get the death penalty, but he's still in prison. Been in prison for over 30 years. Maybe dead by now. Another guy in Louisiana. He's in Angola prison, which is one of the worst prisons in the world. There it's an old plantation, and the family that had the plantation, going back before the Civil War, sold the land, but they still were able to live on the land in the old mansion. And they also had jobs in the prison. And you could see the prisoners in white in the cotton field. Didn't have a cotton gin. They did everything by hand. When they had a funeral, they had a horse-drawn hearse. It was just like it was before the Civil War. And the prisoners were slaves. Anyway, this guy was accused of rape. Cops got him. And yet, actually, the so-called victims said it was someone else, but they got him, and there was a altercation, and he was shot in the back by one of the cops. So they figured they had to convict the son of a bitch, because if they didn't, they'd be in trouble. So they went and convicted him. One of the victims, it was shown that she was not raped. And the other victim wasn't raped. In fact, the one victim was still a virgin. And the other victim wasn't a virgin anymore, but she had sex before. But it was consensual sex. And he had never seen these two gals before in their life. They'd never seen him. He'd been in prison for about 35 years now. And he'd been in solitary confinement for that time, too. I had a nice long letter from him. I had letters from a lot of prisoners that I had on my radio shows. And not too long ago, I played all those shows. But our justice system is anti-black. Sure, there's white folks in there, but more blacks. And yet blacks are a smaller population. In fact, our school system is so screwed up, and because of the drug war and everything, you got the kid from the inner city doesn't have a chance. In Detroit, 80% of the kids don't graduate from high school. A lot of them are smarter than college graduates I've known. But college doesn't do you a damn bit of good, really. I taught myself accounting and taxes because I got an accounting job before I knew anything about accounting. They thought I was an accounting supervisor, but I was on inside sales. I was an account supervisor. They didn't find out for 8 years. Then when they found out, they said, "Damn, we wouldn't have hired you." And that was just before they asked me to be a partner. Anyway, that's a different story. So what I'm going to do now is play Ralph Nader on The System by The Truth.
Never again, people are told by the Democrats or Republicans, essentially one corporate party with two heads, that millions of people have nowhere to go. We really need multi-party development in this country,
because we don't have a government of, by, and for the people. We have a government of the Exxons, by the General Motors, for the DuPonts. Most people feel they're losing control to the big guys, the fat cats that dominate the country. It doesn't matter whether they put a conservative, liberal, progressive label on. They don't like to see the country being taken from them, the democracy for sale.
That was a shorty. And it's true. Our country is run by the big corporations and the rich. It seems to me that when you got 99% of the population being fucked, that they could do something during the elections. The only Democrat I know, well, Elizabeth Warren, I guess, is pretty good, but Bernie Sanders, he may run for president, but he's going to have a hard time getting on a ticket. I think what he should do is run as an independent. We only had one independent president. That was Teddy Roosevelt, because he lost the primaries, so he went as independent, and he was an incumbent, so he won. He was another guy that was an idiot. But did you know San Juan Hill? I think it was called San Juan Hill. In the Spanish-American War, Roosevelt goes up the hill, and they win the war there. You know what they did was they had a bunch of black troops, and they set them up first. And black folks made it easier for the white folks to get up there. But most of the blacks were killed, but they killed most of the enemy. The same thing was done in World War II. My father-in-law was in an all-black group in Japan, or in a war against Japan. And I think it was Iwo Jima. He was the only survivor out of his group. They were sent in first. Anyway, different subject. But what we got to do is, like I say, do not vote for the money. What we need to do is get rid of the Republican and Democratic Party. Now, in Detroit, they have nonpartisan elections. Now, the parties are involved, but it doesn't show what party they're from. Sometimes it's two Democrats, or maybe a Republican and a Democrat. Every once in a while, a Republican would win. But they weren't real Republicans. Anyway, I'm getting tired of talking. And hell, oh my God, it's 2:18 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it off with another little thing from the Truth featuring Noam Chomsky called Mental Zombies.
You want to not only control very closely the lives of people in their work time, but also you have to control them in their off-work time. And what you have to do is turn them into passive, obedient consumers who don't pay, don't try to get out of our hair, basically. Pay attention to what were called the superficial things of life, like fashionable consumption. Get them trapped into consumerism, isolated from one another, atomized, control their belief. But the advertising is there for a purpose. I mean, it's to turn people into creatures whose only concern in life is to max out their 5 credit cards and not to pay attention to what's going on in the world and let the rich, powerful guys do what they want without interference. But it's part of something much broader, I think. It's part of the effort to break down solidarity and sympathy. Well, the idea is to instill in people the idea that all you care about is yourself, and you're not supposed to care about that. You're supposed to care about whether you have enough pairs of shoes and stuff like that, enough cars and video games or whatever it is. That's all you're supposed to care about. If you want to divert the attention of the population from an assault that you're carrying out against them, frighten them. I mean, it's an old story. But the advertising is there for a purpose. But, they don't want, not in their interest to have people talk about things like this.
We'll be right back after these messages for capitalism.
Okay, I am going to go to bed. Oh, hell, I got another hour's worth of work before I go to bed. Get ready for tomorrow's shows. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I pissed you off. Not at me, but at our government. And anyway, I want you all to have a good day, good week, good month, and a good year. Most of all, I want you to have a beautiful life. Thank you for being you, and TGYA, thank God you're alive.